following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio, streaming, and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana, and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health using my top 10 sayings for going good crazy. This week, I'm actually wading into the realm of celebrity gossip because there are some important parts about this bit of celebrity gossip from a mental health perspective. Yeah, I'm going to dive into the Ashley Tisdale toxic mom group essay drama, in part because people on TikTok were interested in hearing more after I dropped a short video on it. Of course, the whole Ashley Tisdale toxic mom group drama centers on the very relatable feeling of being excluded and rejected. So her story, the response to the story, the response to the response of the story, it's all come from some hit nerves. It's hitting some nerves, and lots of famous people got pulled into it. For those who haven't heard about this, congratulations, but Ashley Tisdale, you know, Sharpay from the High School Musical movies, yeah, she wrote an essay for this outlet. I don't know if it's a real magazine. I only know it as a website called The Cut. And it was about leaving an unnamed group of moms because she felt excluded. She did not name them. I repeat, she did not name them. The stated purpose that she said in the article was to encourage others to leave friend groups that were contributing to them feeling bad crazy. Again, she didn't name anybody, but we live in the age of social media where people's entire lives are on there. So, you know, maybe that was naive. People on the internet found pictures of her with a mom group that included other celebrities like Mandy Moore, you know, This Is Us fame. I think she was a singer at one point too. Yeah. Hilary, Duff, Lizzie McGuire was in there. Yeah. All About That bass singer, Megan Trainor. The group also included, you know, makeup artists, stylists, other LA types you'd expect to see around celebrities. So it was a mix of famous and not famous people that Ashley Tisdale made a point of saying she didn't think were bad people, except she said maybe one. She did say the group dynamic was toxic and it resembled high school bullying. Now, what gave her that impression? Well, she described a pattern of exclusion tactics that I got the sense she was saying it had happened to other people before it happened to her, but it was stuff like secondary chats, you know, that left certain people out, probably because they were talking about them. But she didn't say that. I'm reading between the lines. I shouldn't do that. But there were also gatherings that people didn't get invited to. And she didn't get invited to some of them that she subsequently found out about on social media. Now, the important thing that with all the stink bombs surrounding this, no one's refuted any specifics of her claims. In fact, one of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills confirmed that the Real Housewife of Beverly Hills experienced a similar dynamic with what she said was 70% the same people previous to Ashley Tisdale's experiences. So for that reason, there's no reason to believe that Ashley Tisdale is lying for attention or even exaggerating. And you know, the other detail is that Haley Duff, Hilary Duff's sister, liked the post promoting the Ashley Tisdale article. Now, this wasn't the first time even that Ashley Tisdale talked about this whole thing publicly. And I'm really enjoying using her both names. It's like, you know, Yelena in Marvel, Kate Bishop, right? I love the two names. Anyway, Ashley Tisdale, she previously put up content about this issue on her personal blog. This was a while back. And she referenced that previous discussion in the article, meaning it was not new, saying, from the feedback I've received since I started talking about this, I now know I'm far from the only mother who's been brought to tears by members of a group that's supposed to lift everyone up. And if you think this is dramatic, the whole brought to tears thing, keep listening until we get to the part about how exclusion registers in your brain. Preview, it registers as physical pain. Now, Ashley Tisdale's publicist denied that the piece was about Mandy Moore, Hilary Duff, and Meghan Trainor. But then, Hilary Duff's husband, a guy named Matthew Coma, Coma is apparently not really his last name. I don't know. Anyway, the artist known as Matthew Coma decided it was a good idea to take a photo of himself mocking the one used of Ashley Tisdale for the article. He put this photo of himself mocking Ashley Tisdale on Instagram with the caption, "When you're the most self-obsessed, tone-deaf person on earth, other moms tend to shift focus to their actual toddlers." Meow. Right? First of all, there are way more tone-deaf people on the planet, way more self-obsessed people on the planet. So that superlative was unnecessary and false. And, no surprise, he's since deleted that post, but I think that we're seeing the reason that Matthew Coma, Mr. Hilary Duff, listed didn't get divorced as one of his peak 2025 achievements. Yeah. Guys listening, don't do this stuff. If your wife is having issues with a friend of hers or a group of friend of hers, support her, talk to her, be there for her, let her talk to you. Don't comment publicly. If you screw up, your wife will get blamed 100% of the time. People will assume she put you up to it. And her being upset, fellas, is not putting you up to it. I get blamed for my husband's social media content, even when it's not him. He's doing it in a character. I get blamed. I'm like, what? Like, people, what? I don't even look at my husband's social media stuff because he has a much greater stomach for fighting with people on the internet than I do. I don't know if I agree with what he says. I don't know what he said, but I get blamed frequently. Like, not every day, but whenever something's specifically contentious, people complain to me about it. And what am I supposed to do? Right? Either way, back to Matthew Coma. Right? Now that the husband of one of the famous suspected toxic moms had taken a direct, deeply personal, and frankly cheap shot at Ashley Tisdale, it's kind of hard to believe that Ashley Tisdale wasn't talking about Hilary Duff. I mean, we still don't know for sure, but if it wasn't Hilary Duff, Mr. Hilary Duff, dude, why? And if Ashley Tisdale was in fact talking about Hilary Duff, Mr. Hilary Duff, dude, why? There is no victory condition in what you did. Now, at around the same time as this, Meghan Trainor, all about that bass, no treble, released what I think was intended to be a funny take on the whole thing. She was recording herself typing frantically at her keyboard while that song of hers, Still Don't Care, served as a soundtrack. But even I couldn't figure out if the video, like, I watched it 3 times when it came out. It's like, is that a dig at Ashley Tisdale? Is it a dig at the drama surrounding the whole, I didn't know. But either way, girl, you're using your personal drama to promote your song. That is a risky move, right? Now, Meghan Trainor's husband subsequently clarified, like a grown-up, to the media that, they don't have a beef with Ashley Tisdale. That is clear. Okay, I take them at their word, no problem. But ever since Matthew Coma's, Mr. Hilary Duff's Instagram spilling of tea, this story will not die. It even made it onto The View, wherein this is my high irony moment for the week, okay? Because The View, that show that has a panel of basically professional gossips? Well, these professional gossips insisted that Ashley Tisdale should have just left the group privately, not said anything to them, not talked about it, just ghosted, just left, right? These are women on The View that spill tea on fighting with their exes over child custody on national television, but other people are supposed to be quiet about their business. Okay. Now, what did the issue the View ladies have with Ashley Tisdale? Well, it seemed to center around Ashley Tisdale's choice to announce why she was leaving this mom group. According to Ashley Tisdale, she said, "This is too high school for me and I don't want to take part in it anymore." Mic drop, leave chat, right? Now, apparently the panelists on The View thought, publicly criticizing Ashley Tisdale, they're publicly criticizing her, but they claimed they would never go, "Shame on you," to someone that way. "Shame on you, Ashley Tisdale." We would never say "shame on you" to other moms. Okay, the self-awareness of the various View co-hosts over the years has never been great, but wow. First of all, I call BS on that. Joy Behar was on that panel, for God's sake, and there's no way she'd ever go anywhere quietly or leave anywhere quietly, never mind when she felt slighted. And secondly, what the ladies of The View and many others are suggesting Ashley Tisdale should have done and even thought, well, it's absolutely counter to what science tells us our brain does when we're excluded and rejected. So after the first breaks, we got to take it. I'm late. I'm going to come back with the facts on exclusion and rejection, what it does to our brains, and why I agree with Ashley Tisdale that we need to have a frank talk about this stuff without the shame tactics. Thanks. Do you have a story you think would be good for the show? Are you interested in sponsoring the show? Liana at nottherapyshow.com is my email. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media, where this conversation started. Exclusion and rejection, why it's so hard to deal with, when we come back on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back on It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We are still talking about exclusion and rejection and ostracization and the massive spilling of celebrity tea over Ashley Tisdale's essay about why she left a mom group that, in her opinion, had turned toxic. The central issue for Ashley Tisdale was the way her so-called, I'll say so-called, she didn't say that, but her so-called friends were leaving her out of things, knowing full well that she'd discover the stuff they left her out of because they posted it on social media. And somehow some people think she was in the wrong for telling them that this was high school behavior. I don't get it. Even in high school, this treatment, it literally hurts. This sort of rejection, exclusion, and ostracization registers in the brain like physical pain, specifically in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex region, to the point it registers at physical pain. Real talk. They did experiments Tylenol helped reduce the pain response in the brain. Seriously. Now, according to this research, and this has been going on for decades now, this is pretty firm. According to this research, everybody feels this pain in response to rejection and exclusion, including the ladies on The View who insisted that if they got excluded, they'd just go, nah, I'm going to exclude them first. Ha! The degree to which someone experiences social anxiety, believe it or not, has no impact on that initial pain response. They don't feel it any more than someone who doesn't report high degrees of social anxiety. In experiments, this gets wild. Even when people knew they were being rejected by a computer, so it was just a computer program messing with them, not a real person, they knew that did not lessen the pain. A psychologist even ran a rejection experiment where they tested reactions to, somebody rejecting them when participants were told that the person rejecting them was a KKK member. So like they picked worst people in the world, Ku Klux Klan, right? Still pain response initially, immediately. Another experiment promised participants money every time they got excluded, right? Okay, so you're going to get something good when you get rejected or excluded. They still experience that preliminary pain response. It wasn't, yay, money. It was, rejection. Human beings are just wired this way. And this doesn't mean you should never exclude someone. There are appropriate times. It is an appropriate reaction to certain inappropriate behavior, like people being unable to behave places. Just recognize that whenever you do it, it is a form of social punishment. And denying that rejection and exclusion is a form of social punishment is just convenient self-delusion. I mean, even if you have to turn somebody down for something, you're telling them they are not good enough, that they need to do better. No matter how nicely you put it, that's what it is. It happens to all of us sometimes. I swear we're getting less good socially at dealing with it. And this whole drama bomb with the response to Ashley Tisdale is an example of how we suck collectively at this stuff. Because the popular opinion that Ashley Tisdale just should have, quietly eaten the humiliation and just gone away, just socially withered away and died. Experiments showed that participants were more likely to lash out at people after being rejected, even when the person they lashed out at had nothing to do with the initial rejection. The experiment, one of them was, they said, oh, nobody picked you for this group, but there's a person who's late, so we're going to pair you with them, and you're going to do a cooking assignment together. And the cooking assignment involved hot sauce. And the person being tested was told, your new partner, they really don't like hot sauce. Now, compared to the control group who hadn't got that rejection, who put a little bit of hot sauce in, the people who had previously been rejected put like 14 times, well, not quite, 7 times, because it was like just under 2, like 1.75 hot sauce versus like 14 and stuff. They just loaded that stuff with hot sauce when their partner, they were told they don't like hot sauce. They just mighty vengeance with the hot sauce. I love hot sauce, so I would be good, but that's freaking mean, right? What the researchers said, quote, was that almost all people may feel compelled to act out against those who excluded them when there is a good opportunity to do so. Meaning what Ashley Tisdale did, going, y'all high school, see ya, Totally valid. Totally human. The majority. But there's more. Research has shown that people suffering from the pain of rejection and exclusion will agree with the majority opinion in that state, even when it's obviously wrong, and therefore goes against their better judgment. And they do this to fit in. They did an experiment where participants, they simulated ostracization. They rejected the participants, but good. Then they asked them to identify a triangle in a more complex image. So find a triangle in this image, right? The researchers then, before the participant gave their response of where's the triangle, they flashed the answers they claimed other people had given before the participant gave their answers. Those who had been previously excluded gave the wrong but popular answer significantly more than the control group. Modern politics suddenly makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? People who feel shut out of society will agree with utter nonsense if it gives them a chance to fit in somewhere. Apparently, this is all a lizard brain thing because survival for human beings is dependent on safety in numbers. So people who got kicked out of caveman groups back in the day tended to, well, die. Where researchers have seen differences based on things within our control, it has to do with how long that pain lasts. So people with high social anxiety or who are prone to depression, they tend to ruminate on the rejection. They run over it over and over and over again in the head. And the pain lasts significantly longer for the people who ruminate than those who accept the circumstances. I got booted, I got rejected, and then they start making decisions about things they can control. So denying that this sort of rejection hurts, well, it doesn't make that true. It doesn't make it not hurt. But orienting your focus on stuff that makes you feel wanted and accepted somewhere literally helps take the pain away. Based on that science, Ashley Tisdale is right that the best thing she could have done was leave the toxic mom group whose collective behavior resulted in her feeling excluded and rejected. There's also something to the idea that writing the piece with the intent to help others gave her a sense of connectedness that helped her move on. On the other hand, Matthew Coma, Hilary Duff's husband, was dead wrong in him saying it was proof that Ashley Tisdale was self-absorbed, at least no more self-absorbed than any other human being, according to science. Similarly based on science, the View ladies, who once again voice opinions and throw shade at people on national television and get paid to do it, they are wrong that their expectation that Ashley Tisdale just leave quietly, that they're wrong that that's a reasonable expectation, precisely because science shows that the urge to lash out is overwhelming. And frankly, calling out high school mean girl behavior for what it is isn't a moral failing, and it has nothing to do with the welfare of the various children of these moms. And in fact, some of their kids, they're going to be on the receiving end of that kind of bullying sooner or later. And harsh judgments of how people handle being bullied are shown by science to make the pain of the bullying worse. People need support when they feel bullied, not negative judgments. But again, it's The View. They're sometimes professional bullies along being full-time professional gossips. And what they suggested was the better thing to do, as I said, was to basically ghost the group, which is its own form of deeply painful rejection. You know what's coming. I'll get into that after the second break. Questions, comments, any feedback. What are your thoughts? Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media. More on rejection and ostracization when we come back. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back on It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We are still talking about rejection and exclusion. And before the break, I was talking about how the co-hosts on The View, who were criticizing Ashley Tisdale for writing an article about leaving a mom group that had become toxic because, well, according to The View, it was bad that she told the group why she was leaving. Instead, the infinite wise women on The View said that she should have just ghosted them. She should have just left, not told them why. You know, just drop them cold. That's the more polite, mature, nicer response. They then started commenting that Whoopi Goldberg, who was not there on that episode, she left group chats all the time. Yeah, and they noticed, didn't they? It wasn't just quietly leaving. And they're commenting on her tendency to leave group chats, aren't they? It wasn't a subtle thing. And they're clearly in contact with Whoopi Goldberg, making what they're describing and what they're saying Ashley Tisdale should have done not the same thing at all. It's I'll call you tomorrow versus never call me again, lose my number. Just, it's so The View. Just dropping out of someone's life with no warning or explanation, that can emotionally scar that person. If things read to the brain like physical pain, they can leave scars, right? Mostly because ghosting leaves the ghosted without any answers as to what went wrong. And this is especially difficult for neurodivergent people whose brains have a greater tendency to play things on repeat because the default mode network of their brain, which is the part of the brain, the network, not a specific region, but networking between the different regions, it's responsible for self-reflection and recalling memories. And in neurodivergent people, that series of pathways is more active. So The View's suggestion of just ghost, it's ableist on top of not being very authentic. I work with a lot of neurodivergent people in, my one-on-one practice. And if I had $1 for every time I heard about someone totally screwed up because they got ghosted, I wouldn't need sponsors for this show. It leaves the other person, the person who got ghosted, without closure, and it causes significant feelings of rejection, ding, 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 hurt, and confusion. And this is, even though it's primarily done, people who ghost say they do it to avoid conflict. So they avoid conflict between people, and yet a huge amount of conflict is created within the other person. Is that nicer? Not really. And frankly, if you have ever hung out in LA, ever, the idea that a famous group of friends could just ghost each other, especially if their kids know each other in that town in LA, and the idea that there's no likelihood that they'll run into each other at some sort of event, that is just ridiculous. The View is recorded in New York, and maybe in New York, you can just ghost people and avoid them. Because New York is it's a weird gray mass of a city where everything is so crowded and stacked on top of each other that no one looks at each other. But LA is this even weirder, gigantic small town where the trends are so intense that you're very likely to run into someone that you tried to ghost at some point. Now imagine if there are kids there too. Awesome. Great advice. It's also a two wrongs theory. 2 wrongs make a right. That is basically advising someone be a complete hypocrite, right? It goes something like this. I'm so hurt that I feel rejected and shunned that I'm going to use a tactic known to make the recipient feel rejected and shunned. There, I'm obviously the nicer and more moral person. I'm more mature. That doesn't make sense, especially since the View ladies made the argument that this one just... They suggested that Ashley Tisdale should have ghosted for the sake of her children because she's a mama, right? Like, real talk. I know this is how normal people go through life, but this kind of normal, it's not healthy. The idea that a woman must only think of her children from the second she has them. So unhealthy. In fact, it's not freaking possible. A woman doesn't stop having her own emotional needs the moment she has to change diapers and save for college. And somebody at Rolling Stone wrote a hot take article about this whole thing that I can't even get into that one because it was so... No, Ashley Tisdale, it's not your friends that made you miserable. It's society, patriarchy. Being a mother is miserable. Well, it doesn't have to be, as long as the mom still gets to be a person with their own emotions and own emotional needs that are valid, not just my baby. In fact, because Ashley Tisdale is a mom, I don't remember, I think she's got like 3 kids, maybe 2, I don't know. But either way, it's even more important for her to be an example, a good example, a mentally healthy example, and listen to what her feelings are telling her. And if she needed to tell off the group of women who shunned her and then posted about it on social media, if she needed to tell those ladies off to get closure, she had to drop the mic. Good for her. Good for her that she did it. That was about her needs in that moment. And never mind that she was right. That sort of deliberate exclusion is high school mean girl tactics. Here's an similar example from my own life. Apparently people like the examples from my own life, so we're going to run with them. Start off, we're going to ease you in until we get really spectacular. I used to run these parties, right? These New Year's parties. They were for charity, all that stuff. I had to stop running them because of the person who's still stalking me to this day. So after I couldn't do it anymore because stalker gonna stalk, a bunch of people decided that they'd had such a great time at my parties that they did their own party at the exact same time of the year, around New Year's Eve, at the exact same hotel, same format, and they didn't invite me. And of course I found out. People talked about it on social media. And when I found out, I'm like, seriously, guys, WTF? Why didn't you tell me? And you know what they said? Strap down for this one. They said, we thought you'd understand because it made us so happy. Which is a giant pile of fake poop emoji, okay? If they thought I'd understand, they'd have told me about it in advance and sent me an invite as a courtesy. And I might even have gone, since not having to plan it, I just show up. The stalker didn't know in advance where I'd be. And it would be harder to talk her way in and get access to me because I wasn't the organizer. But the point is, they didn't invite me. They didn't even have the conversation with me. And they wanted me to buy that it was because they thought I'd understand. It made them so happy. I hate that nonsense. They were wrong. I understood, but my understanding wasn't the takeaway I think they wanted me to have, because their version doesn't make any sense. Not only were they wrong, when they found out they were wrong, none of them terribly cared. They just blamed me for not understanding why I was excluded. Yeah, I understand. You know, they didn't like me enough to invite me. It's real simple. And, you know, when you work in the media long enough, you get used to being treated like this. And I think that's a factor in the fact that this was a Hollywood thing, right? Even though, oh God, it happens everywhere. This is something a lot of people can relate to. But in the media, when you're a going concern, there are tons of people around you wanting to use you. The minute they can't use you, they're gone. Now, granted, from what I hear from my friends that aren't in the media, most jobs and social circles are like that now. And, you know, because I've had to go through it so very much, I consider myself okay at handling rejection. Not great, but okay. I'm certainly very used to being excluded, which is why I told that story, which is only one of many, off before I got into this. But I got okay at dealing with rejection exclusion because I use a process for coping and processing that follows the science, not the just don't let it get to you. Just, I don't need these people view style advice that your brain just isn't going to follow. Now, like I said, logically, you'd think that because these famous people have probably had to deal with a lot of rejection and exclusion themselves. I mean, there's certainly a lot of mockery of This Is Us. I even did a little bit about it because the show was just, I called it This Is Crying, which is pretty modern, pretty minor, but still, I'll cop to it. You'd think that famous people who have to deal with this stuff all the time, logically, you'd think they'd be the last ones to do it to someone else. But this is the thing. You've got a group of people who claim, I mean, Meghan Trainor keeps making all this music about, yeah, I have haters, but I don't care. My mama told me to love myself. All this. I like her music, but let's face it, that's an ongoing theme. Okay. When you claim that something that, according to science, bothers absolutely everyone, when you're claiming that that doesn't bother you, you are likely setting yourself up to commit some pretty awful behavior because denial isn't a river in Egypt, honey. Now, setting the stage, after all that, we got to go to our last break. Close the show on kind of a funnier note. I have an absolutely epically, hilariously horrible story of a time that I got excluded and rejected that I'll tell you after this commercial break. It's about a time I got banned from a family funeral. Yup, excluded and rejected from a family funeral. Questions, comments, any feedback, this is an epic story. Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media. Spilling the tea of my own absolutely bonkers experiences with exclusion after the break. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We are still talking about exclusion, rejection, ostracization, why it hurts so much. And as promised, I'm going to tell you an epic story about the time that, like I said before the break, I was excluded from a family funeral, but I was also left out of the obituary for that family member when all the other members of the family with, the same status, the same relation to the person who died, everybody else at that tier was included. I was excluded. I think it was the night before the funeral. It was one of those somebody told somebody who told me but it was relayed to me that if I showed up at the funeral, I would be removed by security. Apparently that's not legal, but I don't know. But then I'm like, okay, long story short, I didn't show up. And then the people who told me not to show up, you'll be removed by security, they told people I just didn't show up because I just didn't care. Okay. Then the stalker I talked about before, she started posting online that my family hates me so much that I wasn't allowed to go. Of course, contradicting the story spread by the family members that insisted on staying in touch with said stalker on Facebook. And part of the falling out with this person was that this person insisted that the stalker's presence, due to me, was endangering this family member's children and making her afraid. As my late uncle used to say, you can pick your nose, you can pick your seat, but you can't pick your family. And, when I was left out of the obituary, my first instinct was that it was so petty, which was unsurprising based on the people involved. But yeah, it still stung that they'd stoop to that level. Like the science says, rejection hurts even when you're rejected by people you think are awful. But wow, did being left out of the obituary, people noticed, like other people in the family, and it blew up drama. This was only a few months after October 7th of 2023. And people were Facebook messaging me from Israel asking me if I was okay. And as you can imagine, when there's drama like this, just like in the Ashley Tisdale thing, people had very strong opinions. And that was kind of the worst part of it. Out of respect for the people who died, I didn't want to be part of some ugly scene. And the people who were instigating the whole exclusion, leaving me out thing, very obviously, they were, no surprise, well known for causing scenes at family events. It was like that line from The Lion King. There's one in every family, sire, two in mine, and they always manage to ruin special occasions. People at one point wanted to form a human barrier around me, like dudes from the 300, that movie with all the shields, so I could attend this freaking funeral. And in my opinion, that kind of stuff was exactly what, the deceased person wouldn't have wanted. So, I think these people who wanted to drag me by the hair to a funeral had the best of intentions, but I still think that it was the right call to not go. Because, yeah, I got gossiped and lied about after the fact. But, the much younger girlfriend of one of the instigators, who, was the girlfriend before that instigator was out of their last relationship, yeah. Well, that girlfriend became the prime target of the other post-funeral gossip. She got nicknamed the Kurva, which is, for people who don't speak Polish or another Slavic language, a term for, well, the nice version is prostitute. And I actually told people to stop calling her that because, God knows what she was told. God knows what lies she'd been told. And I found out that the, I'm scared family member also has a whole following on social media that just follow this person because their entire identity is made up of sicknesses and claiming everything is miserable and they're terrified of everything. And they just get popcorn and watch the fireworks. And is any of this great? No. Right? The sheer pettiness irritates me. The lying they did is frustrating. And the fact that some relatives believe the lies about me is really unfair. But I get such a sense of perspective from the fact that the people trying to spread fake gossip about me are getting the exact same treatment by others. It's another situation like what Ashley Tisdale described. Most of the people involved in this whole thing aren't bad people. The social dynamics, the family dynamics are just undeniably poisoned. There's even a character in this whole thing, I swear to God. Hector Salamanca from Breaking Bad? The bell guy The guy who just rings the bell in the nursing home. Yeah, there's literally like a Jewish version of that in this whole thing. This old person like shot calling from the nursing home. I'm not kidding. And I don't care what anyone says. Every family has drama. Mine is just extra spectacular and hilarious. And fortunately, I don't need funerals for closure. Fortunately. Thank God, right? But also, the fact that that entire situation with the funeral and the obit and all that stuff, the fact that it was grade A bonkers actually made it easier to figure out like who was right, who was wrong. It was easier to process. It didn't have those subtleties that exclusion tactics normally have. And, so those gray areas that drive us bad crazy, I was saved from that by just, it's like freaking, I don't know, like Curb Your Enthusiasm meets My Cousin Vinny. It was bizarre, like Modern Family kind of bizarre, right? And that's, getting back to the more glam, Hollywood-style drama. Ashley Tisdale, for all the sheen of California on the whole thing, her advice is actually totally in keeping with what science says is best to do when you find yourself in a group like that. Walk away. Validate your right to your own feelings. Do what you can to connect with people who, connect in the same way you do. And talk about your experiences without shame, but also with no attempt to shame the other parties involved. Because usually what they'll do, they will do what the people who tried to exclude me did, or possibly what, Hilary Duff's husband did. They end up telling on themselves. Seriously, guys, save yourselves. Do not get involved in girl world drama. It never ends well. Just, yes, I understand. Yes, you're upset. Yes, I care. Don't take pictures and make a fake magazine cover and put it on the internet. Don't leave people out of obituaries. Don't. I'll stop spilling tea. Questions, comments, any feedback whatsoever. Do you have a hilarious story of exclusion to share? Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media. Shout out to TikTok that inspired this episode. My God, I'm a almost 48-year-old woman being inspired by TikTok. Hey, that either makes me still cool or completely uncool. Probably both. Anyway, you're crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. See you next show.